All right, just a programming note from Geneva. We expect that Stephane de Mistura, Special Envoy for Syria, will be speaking to your colleagues in Geneva in about an hour from now to discuss the situation of the talks ongoing in Geneva, and that should be available to you on the UN webcast page. Back here, the Security Council is currently holding a debate on the destruction of trafficking of cultural heritage by terrorist groups in the situation of armed conflict. Audrey Azoulay, the new Director General of UNESCO, told Council members that this Council's adoption this March of Resolution 2347 represents a major breakthrough which testifies to a new awareness of the importance of culture, not only to respond to conflict, but also to prevent radicalization and violent extremism. In a very short span of time, she said already 29 member states have shared information on new actions taken to protect cultural heritage, strengthening tools and training of specialized personnel, reinforcing international cooperation and information sharing. Vladimir Voronkov, the new head of the UN Office of Counterterrorism, also spoke and told Council members that the looting and illicit trafficking of cultural objects leads to the financing of terrorism and criminal networks. And Yuri Fedotov, the head of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, added that we must build up international cooperation in investigating, prosecuting, and adjudicating cases related to trafficking in cultural property. The art market and museums should pay special attention, he said, to the provenance of cultural items that they are considering for acquisition or with which they have otherwise come into contact. The head of Interpol also addressed the Council. Ambassador Cardi, we are told, will be accompanied by Madame Azoulay and will speak to you at the stakeout at the end of the meeting. Turning to Iraq, the Secretary General Special Representative for Iraq, Jan Kubish, met yesterday with Grand Ayatollah Ali Sistani. During the meeting, he congratulated the government and the people of Iraq in their victory against Daesh, but also noted that efforts to counter terrorism must continue. Mr. Kubish underscored the UN's support for the Constitution and also regards the Baghdad-Erbil relations, including guarantees of the full constitutional rights of the Kurdistan region of Iraq and its people, and the timely holding of general elections. The full remarks are online. And turning to Yemen, our colleagues at OCHA tell us that as of today, there is no major change in the situation at Yemen's Hodeidah port. There's still 2 vessels carrying approximately 35,000 metric tons of food and commodities that are berthed at Hodeidah. We would like to see a World Food Program chartered vessel that's carrying UNICEF and World Health Organization supplies, which are urgently needed to address the diphtheria outbreak, to be cleared to enter the port. And the UN mission in Mali, MINUSMA, took note of the decision today by the government to postpone the elections scheduled for next month until April 2018. The decision should give time to answer concerns expressed by many political leaders, including regarding the peace process. And our colleagues in Somalia tell us that despite massively scaled up assistance this year, humanitarian needs across the country are on the rise and are increasingly severe. OCHA estimates that next year, 6.2 million people will need humanitarian assistance and protection, and that half of the country's population. The agency said that urgent and more sustainable investment is required, as well as extending famine prevention efforts. And today, UNICEF released a report calling on world leaders to include specific commitments to protect uprooted children when drafting global migration policies. The call comes ahead of next month's preparatory meeting on the Global Compact for Migration in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. The report highlights best practices for the care and protection of migrant children, includes practical examples of government, civil society partners, and host communities working to support and integrate uprooted children and their families, and it's available online. And we often deal with thorny issues here, so this is one. The FAO today is saying that it is time to put cactus on our menus. Sorry, that was a pretty lame joke. But thank you for laughing, Brendan. It's no laughing matter, though. Experts and FAO said that cactus should be an essential crop in places where climate change is increasing the risk of drought due to its ability to thrive in arid and dry climates. Cactus has a long tradition in its native Mexico, but it is slowly catching up and in other countries such as Brazil and Ethiopia, and during the recent drought in southern Madagascar. It's proved to be a crucial supply of food, forage, and water for local people and their animals. More information on the FAO website. After me, you will hear from Brendan, and then obviously the Security Council President, as I mentioned. Tomorrow is World AIDS Day, and I'll be joined by Simon Bland, the Director of the Joint UN Program on HIV/AIDS, UNAIDS. He's the head of their New York office. And at 3 o'clock in this room, there will be a briefing by Ambassador Koro Besho, the permanent representative of Japan, who, as you can guess it, will be presiding over the Security Council for the month of December. Oof. Maybe I should distribute coffee here. Yes, Masuji. Yeah, Bueller, yeah, exactly. Sorry. Yes, Masood.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Stephane, this is a question that I've been asking a long time. This is about the Palestinian children in Israeli jails, and I've been asking for the updates. So do you have any update? Are they being released by the Israelis?
When and if I ever get an update, I will share it.
So you don't know?
Share it with you. I just have no update from what Fahan told you a few weeks ago. Sylviane.
Thank you, Stephane. There will be next week a meeting on the International Support Group for Lebanon. Who will be representing, who will be going?
No, I'm aware of the meeting.
Guterres?
It is, the participation of the UN is still being worked out. As soon as I'm able to confirm it to you, I will do so.
There will be another one in February. Do you have something to tell about it?
I can barely see beyond next week.
Group.
Please don't ask me about February. Mr. Lee.
One follow-up on the African Union-EU summit, and then something about the China Energy Fund Committee. I'd asked you yesterday just if there are any details about this task force and what the UN's role. Since then, President Macron has said he'll be asking for an authorization of military force against traffickers. And I wanted to know, was this discussed with the Secretary General, and what are the details of the
I don't have any details
force?
to share with you. As you know already, the UN, which with the IOM, UNHCR, UNICEF, and others, have been working very closely on the issue of migrants in Libya. But when I have something, I will share it with you.
Okay, and the other one, I asked you yesterday, you said you were going to check, but I've checked. So I wanted to ask you, for the grant that was given out after the indictment, the Powering the Future We Want, I'm looking now at the current high-level steering board of the group that made a decision on the grant, and Mr. Patrick Patrick Ho, who was indicted and is in jail, is on the board, along with Akam Steiner of UNDP and Warren Sage, former UN official. So I guess this is, again, I want to sort of figure out why it was that the photo op was canceled, Amina Mohammed's presence was canceled, the PGA, that's separate, was canceled. How can it be that the money was given out after the indictment? Who made the decision to go forward with this? What's the status of that board? Is he still on the board, although he's in jail?
Well,
you keep saying to ask Dessa, but okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
What I can tell you is, as Dessa has told me, they have put on hold their relationship with this NGO moving forward until there is an outcome of the criminal proceedings that are going on in the U.S. The money that was giving out through the Dessa-run project is gone through the stringent UN financial rules and regulations. But as I said, I think the important thing is that moving forward, we have put on hold our relationship with this organization and partnership with it.
No, I mean, thanks for saying that, but I guess it comes down to somebody. It seems like somebody in the building made a judgment. And again, maybe it's hard to make a judgment in the heat of the moment, but if the person that chose the winner, and if this group is, if the indictment triggered a review, why did the last $1 million go out the door?
Mr. Ho was not the one who chose the winners. The winners were ultimately chosen by the head of Dessa. Oleg.
On the Syrian talks in Geneva, taking into account the importance of the discussions at this stage, does Secretary General plan to, at some point, to attend the meetings in Geneva, probably to give more support to the negotiations and the process?
I'm not aware of any plans for him to travel to Geneva. I think Mr. de Mistura is clearly in the lead. The Secretary General remains in touch, and the Secretary General and his team remain in touch with Mr. de Mistura and are updated on a regular basis on the talks. As a matter of rule, in any one of these challenging talks that we have on various countries and various issues, if and when the Secretary General's presence is needed, he would go. But as I said, as of now, just to be clear, there are no plans for him.
Yes, but taking into account the problems the Mistura has gathering the delegations at least in one room, maybe there is a possibility of adding some weight, authority.
You know, Mr. de Mistura is a able and experienced mediator and a negotiator, and as I said, when he feels the Secretary General's presence is needed, I'm no doubt that he will ask him. Yes, sir.
Thanks. The United States has called for the DPRK to lose its UN rights and privileges and possibly its voting rights. Two questions. The first, for the benefit of the listening public for whom the UN Charter is not committed to memory, is that possible, and who would make that decision, or how could that be done?
Those are issues that are dealt with by the General Assembly itself and through the Charter. It's not one that involves the Secretary General, so that's an issue for the General Assembly to decide on.
And second, sort of more broadly, does the SG believe further diplomatic isolation of that sort is a wise idea, or is greater engagement what is needed?
Look, the issue of bilateral relationship between states is a matter for the states concerned. Regarding the situation on the Korean Peninsula, I think the Secretary General has been clear, is that the only solution is a political solution. He's committed to working with all parties to reduce tensions and appeals for de-escalation and full implementation of the relevant Security Council resolutions. You'll recall the latest Council resolution, there is a call for further work to reduce tensions so as to advance the prospect of a comprehensive settlement. Linda.
Thank you, Steph. Apropos of yesterday's discussions on North Korea and the Security Council, U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley, in her statement, called for the UN members to sever all ties with North Korea. Is that something that you think the SG might support?
Linda, with just due respect, I think I just answered the question.
No,
but I mean, as I said, the issue of
everything.
the issue of bilateral relations is one for states themselves to decide. For the Secretary General, he feels that and strongly believes that the only solution is a political one, and he will continue to work with all the parties looking to how to de-escalate the current tensions.
But I meant multilateral, something that all states should institute.
I'm sorry. Say, I mean,
I guess what I'm saying is, would he favor, even theoretically, that the UN Security Council impose a total ban on all ties with North Korea?
You know, we try not to talk about theory here, but about practice. It is important that avenues remain in order to find a political solution. Yes, sir.
On the meeting on 28 between the SG and the mediation team, 15, was North Korea one of the issues was discussed? And did the SG give like each one a job to do?
No, it was an initial meeting. I think they discussed a whole number of crises around the world. They remain at the disposal of the Secretary General. He will call upon different members of the team for different efforts when he feels the time is right. And as he told them, he also is open to suggestions from them and an open dialogue from them.
Don't you think like the time is right for North Korea now, like to appoint one to mediate instead, because you believe You said that the SJ believed that the only solution is political solution. If like he had the opportunity to meet the 15 of them, that was not the right time to ask them to start working on
I think
political solution.
I think the Secretary General said that the UN, him, or directly or his office, remain available for all the parties. But those are things, in any mediation, there has to be a call from both sides to accept a mediator. In the meantime, contacts are continuing between the U.S. and all the parties at various levels. Masood.
Thank you. Stephane, on this Deputy Secretary General Amna Mohammed, it is being, certain quarters are suggesting that this is being done because she's an African American and she is a Deputy Secretary General. Can you comment on this, whether it is in fact true?
I hear your words. I'm not sure I understand the question.
The campaign of verification against Amna Mohammed is being done because she's an African. She's from Nigeria.
I don't know how to answer your question. I don't. I try not to analyze people's motives. I think we have been very clear and forthcoming here in saying that the Deputy Secretary General did everything according to the law, and that any further questions should be given over to the Nigerian authorities.
Same
Lee,
topic.
What a surprise!
I had
Yes,
something
please.
else, but
I know.
I didn't know she was an African American, but I did want to ask this. You said you've been very clear, so I want to ask you again. The question isn't whether she believes or states that she did things right. The question was, what was her belief of where the wood was when she signed the 4,000 Rosewood certificates? Did she believe that the wood was in Nigeria, as the CITES rules would require, or were these done after the fact so that wood would be released that had already been stopped in Chinese ports, which violates CITES regulations?
I think
where was the wood?
She did everything according to the law. There have been discussions with CITES, I think very recently in Geneva. The Nigerian government, from what I understand, has been engaging with CITES, and I think there were no issues raised on the parts of CITES during this latest meeting.
What's the relationship between CITES and the UN? How would you describe it?
It's part of the UN system. CITES is a treaty. Again, I will be struck down if I'm wrong, but CITES is a treaty-based body that is being secretariated by UNIP, but it is not one over which the Secretary General or the Deputy Secretary General has any authority.
Can we get a copy of the answer that was given there? Because this has been.
I think you should reach out to our colleagues at CITES.
Why didn't she do a press conference?
Well, I mean, next time she comes to. I don't think she's ever said she feels she's vilified. Others have said that.
Yes.
When she next comes to the press, she'll be glad. She'll be happy to answer your questions.
Unrelated question. You're going to love it.
Yes, please. I'm sure I'm going to love it.
There's been a lot of praise of Bangladesh and rightly so, for what it's done for Rohingya refugees. But in the last few days, Sheikh Hasina has given the green light to opening up an island that's an hour's ship traffic from any other island that's owned by Bangladesh as a place to put 100,000 Rohingya. And I wanted to know, there's been some criticism by refugee rights groups and others, but does the UN, despite the overarching praise of the country, does the UN believe that's a good idea?
Look, I don't have the details of the report. We've seen the press reports. I think what is important is that refugees be treated with respect and with the full rights to which they are entitled to.
And could I ask, I just wanted to ask, to follow. I didn't know that you were going to say that DESA has suspended, or whatever the right word is, its relationships with China Energy Fund Committee. But I did want to, now that you've said that, can you explain? It seems like in the indictment of Englab Singh, not only was Sun Kanep Foundation relationships broken with it and money returned, but an audit was launched. So if there's enough, if DESA, I mean, is it up to DESA or is it up to the Secretary General to decide how to react to an indictment that shows that there's been business dealings between
I think we're very much looking at the situation as a whole. We have something new to announce. We shall.